Welcome, everybody. I'm here with Greg Stanley. My name is Wes Warren, and today's topic is handling the staff shortage in dentistry. If you've experienced, I know everybody's experienced this. I don't know one client that I've talked to that hasn't had this problem. It's a huge issue. And what we're going to talk about today is how to beat this problem, what you can do to overcome it. Greg, I know you've been working on this and working with doctors on how you can fix this and what they need to do. You obviously are an accountant by training, so this is stuff that you're very familiar with. What have you done with people to fix this problem?
Good questions, Wes. It's kind of the Spencer Johnson story of who moved my cheese. The COVID came through and completely displaced everybody. When I started in dentistry, it was very hard for doctors to wrap their mind around the idea that they were going to have to spend hard-earned money on marketing to attract patients. There was something demeaning about that. Well, they kind of finally embraced that, and we even see it pushed to levels that probably aren't productive. On the other side of that is we see staff costs pushing their way higher to where doctors can't wrap their mind around it. In other words, how can I let the bar down for patients with incredible discounts, at the same time pay staff more than I ever thought possible, and in doing so for a new staff person could disrupt all of my existing staff? So let's talk about that. First of all, it is a new era. We have seen the devastation and impact of inflation in 1980 through 1982. Absolutely nothing quite like it. We're approaching that now, but we survived it. In fact, from a standpoint of investors and savers, it was actually a good time. All you had to do is make sure you weren't buying anything, especially things that were going up in price, and you did well. Here's what it comes down to. If you're a solo doctor, and we'll get to the associate shops in a minute. If you're a solo doctor, there's a number of things in your office that have to run better and smoother than ever before. And right now you're probably thinking, well, I'm doing that. Yeah, you are, but some of your team are probably marginal. We're going to have to get everything from every inbound call that's gettable, we have to get it. Everybody that can be converted to treatment of some kind, we have to convert them. Everybody that we can get to refer, has got to refer. We got to get 5-star reviews. In other words, all the things that take us upward have to happen now, where before we could kind of get through it.
So to the doctor that's saying, well, I kind of already do that. I kind of already am running a great office, what you're saying, does that mean like you have to be almost perfect? Like if you're at 95% efficiency with your office, it really needs to be 100% to overcome inflation and the staff costs that are becoming a problem?
That's a good question. No, probably nobody really is at 95%, but if they were, well, good for them. You only have to be off in one area: inbound calls, conversion to treatment, patients getting into the hygiene schedule, staying in it. In other words, there's all these things that have to be perfect to get this thing running smoothly. So the bottom line is we're going to have to open our minds like we never did before, except with marketing. I'm in a discount marketing to make it work, and people were thinking, my goodness, what am I thinking? This is crazy. Well, now we're going to be looking at $55 to $75 per hour to attract a hygienist. I saw a study once, Wes, that said the average hygiene department nationwide, when you consider all of their costs, was netting $17 a day. And that's when we would think of cost as relatively manageable. Hygiene's never been the center of profitability or prosperity for dentistry. So we got to get our minds right. And this is my call today in this broadcast. We have to change our thinking. Staff costs are what they are. If you don't want to run half-staffed and see half your income go, which leaves you basically with just your overhead and no net, you got to wrap your mind around what it's going to cost to attract staff from wherever we got to get them. Probably going to be in another office where they're not happy. And you're going to have to pay numbers that you're going to be thinking, I shouldn't be paying this. This is too much. But the cost is the cost. And the ones that will step up and pay it and run a smooth operation are going to prosper like they never have. Now, these things go back, by the way. We saw inflation go high and everybody said, well, that's it. Inflation forever in 1982. And it went back down to 1 or 2% and stayed there for a decade. So about the time you think it's over, it's not over.
What would you say to the doctor that is to hire this person that you're talking about? He's got a few employees that he might have to give a raise to just so that he doesn't upset the apple cart.
Well, of course, you want to start, if you can, with a signing bonus. But, you know, I just saw something. The employee marketplace, I saved the article. It says that signing bonuses across the board, not in dentistry, but outside of dentistry, are going away, which means the market is getting better already.
Yeah.
So with that thought in mind, I would start with a signing bonus, maybe spread it over 6 months or a year or whatever, and get people on board without upsetting my staff. But let's face it, it's time to go out and look and see what the new cost of staff is. If we call a local recruiter or somebody that's got their finger on the pulse of this, and they say you got to pay $35 an hour for an assistant or whatever to start, as shocking and unacceptable as that might sound, that's where it's at. As they say in golf, you got to play the ball where it lies. And if it's at $35 an hour, that's where we got to go. If hygiene goes to another level, well, we got to go there. Otherwise, we're sitting around with a highly trained, highly capable owner doctor, and maybe even some associates, and they don't have the staff support to be productive. It's the worst outcome. Let's go through, Wes, some of the things that doctors can actually do to make all this come into balance.
Right.
You know, if you're going to be paying $75,
yeah, how do you make that work, Greg? Yeah, that would be the
first
first question I would be thinking. And
the first thing everybody thinks is raise prices. Never forget, prices are determined by the market. So maybe you can, maybe you can't. But let's look at what you can do. Sometimes in strange times, like, height of pandemic, we saw states telling doctors they could do hygiene once a year. We've seen hygiene every 45 minutes, doing 12 patients a day. We've seen assisted hygiene doing 14 to even 16 patients a day. We've seen all that. And you got to go where you got to go when that comes up. And you might say, well, I don't know if my hygienist wants to do that. Well, yeah, I can see her with a sonic scaler in each hand, you know, trying to make it work. But let's be realistic. We've got to keep this affordable. We've got to keep hygiene flowing through our office, whatever the cost.
And so you're saying that's the most important thing to make sure does not get eroded during this time, is the hygiene base.
Or pretty soon you lose your momentum. You're standing around with a full complement of overhead and nobody to treat.
I would agree. This is the time to be to make sure that you're not losing days. That's probably the scariest thing that I see an office that tends to be happening right now, and it's all over. Yeah, it's over $1,000 a month. You know, extra pay and hygiene, or maybe $1,500 a month. But if you lose a full column of hygiene, it's $50,000 worth of restorative dentistry that's walking out. Eventually, it will manifest in a reduction of that revenue. So
okay, so with this in mind, we'll go through each thing. You know, the inbound calls, you say you're at 100%, you're not. track it, keep a log of the calls that come in that are related to an appointment, and the ones that said they'd call back, by the way, they don't call back. Those are lost. We want to
I
see you at about what, Wes? What would you say is a good number?
I can comment at this because we track this all the time, and we've worked with companies that track it, and we obviously coach people, you know. This number changes within the office. So we can be watching an office for a year and it does great. We want it around 90% or higher. And that's even offices that are out of network. We still want to be 85 to 90% of all inbound calls get converted to an appointment. But this number can just shear off a cliff, and all of a sudden we're at 50, 60% for minor, what you would think of as minor things, but you know, how they answer the phone, the schedule of getting pushed out a little too far in hygiene. And so when a new patient calls, you know, it's 30 days, it's 3 weeks to get in. All these things add up. And when you actually track the data, it's not good. It drops off dramatically, especially if you're marketing. I will tell you, if you're not doing any marketing and it's basically referral, patient-to-patient referral, yeah, you know, I always say this, if my wife tells me to call this office, this is where you're going, yeah, I'll call back. You're not going to lose me. It's as soon as you're reaching out for new patients a little bit, that this really becomes a problem. And it can be bad. It can cost the practice any chance of growth, any chance of moving forward. It can be disastrous, really. Yeah.
Let's go next to the next step, conversion of people buying dentistry. Now, normally, honestly, this is usually the domain of the associate doctor where we start to see need for coaching. But the owner sometimes falls prey to the temptation to present something the patient's not expecting in a way that really gets the patient on the wrong foot. Something esoteric, something that the doctor's high on, the patient doesn't even know about. And in the end, the patient doesn't even get what they came in the office for. And it's very disorienting. These are the kind of mistakes you can't make today. If we're going to be paying people this kind of money, these staff and hygienists this money, people got to drop into the funnel and produce.
I can tell you, Greg, everybody listening that owns a practice doesn't think they have a problem here. And I will tell you through just sheer statistics that the vast majority actually do. It's pretty rare that we see somebody fully dialed in here, even owners. And some owners that have a nice practice, things are going well. With new patients, if you were to actually track the percentage of new patients that convert and actually do treatment and move forward, a lot of offices are well below 80%. And that's where we need to be. New patients that have been diagnosed restorative, you need about 80% to start moving forward with something on that list. And you should do that exercise. Look at, you know, the last 60 or 90 days, new patients, how many of them followed through with something I recommended. And if you're below 80%, this can really hurt. Like Greg, like you're saying, the survivability of an overhead pinch and staff costs, it makes it off the table for you. You will not survive. You won't be able to grow. And the likelihood is you could actually drift backwards.
Another thing, once we get this far, we got them through the door, that's the presentation going. The truth is, some owners like to do some things more than others, and so some things get pushed out. So far, it doesn't get done. There's no sense of urgency coming out of it, et cetera. Those things probably have to change to bring you up to 90, 95% effectiveness. So going forward, and finally, referrals. The practice that has a strong referral following, with associates, without associates, has an advantage over everybody. They buy faster, bigger, the cases are fatter, and you can afford to pay staff generous wages like they're asking for now.
What are
So,
you looking for in terms of referrals? So if I was a dentist watching this, what numbers would you be like, hey, this is a problem. You're not getting enough referrals.
well, a number that floats around the industry that I've kept my eye on is between 21 and 22 new patients a month that are referred by other patients. Then you can add to that a few marketing patients. And if you're good at processing marketing patients, they eventually flow in and become part of this. So 22 referrals is kind of a minimum. And so I tell you, if you really think of yourself as a go-getter, you want to see that around 35 or 40.
So
And
that's a
there's
good
no,
off.
that's
Yes.
yeah,
So a bare minimum is 22,
yeah,
but an
that's
office
a
that's really doing well should be at 35, 40 referrals a month.
22 is a national average, uh, uh, many of which go bankrupt, you know what I mean? So we want to get that up, but I want to talk about that. It comes down to superior consumerism that takes real focus. And, you know, an owner doctor many times is delivering all the consumerism. The staff are kind of clock punching sometimes and not engaged, drifting, dazed through the day. When we get everybody on board, we can get that number up to 40. We follow up, we let people know we're listening when they talk. Everything is tuned in for every patient. And you'll see they'll, even with a little bump, asking them to refer, you'll get something out of that.
Let me ask you, what do you think is the number one cause for somebody having referrals that are we obviously see a lot of offices at 15. You know, it's not what we're looking for, obviously. So they're just off somewhere. Where do
Sure.
you think that is the number one reason that causes that to be low?
That's a great question because it's probably the way their practice is designed. There's only a part of the market that they can appeal to with their offering. For example, maybe their prices are a little high or their comparables aren't comparable or whatever. And so they only appeal to a part of the market, the heavily insured or the wealthy or whatever. When you try to appeal to a wider market, you got a good chance of driving up your overall referral number. And these are the people that buy good. When referrals buy bad, it's better than marketing patients buying good. So
Right.
once you grasp that, you finally come away no longer feeling fearful that hygienists want almost as much as an associate doctor wants, or the front desk or the assistants want so much money. We'll figure this out. We just have to get it right.
I'd like to make a comment on this whole endeavor is the practice that does get it right, like you say, that can actually make this work at higher wages, hygiene wages, that actually can figure out a way economically that their practice can still survive and thrive. Nobody else can do it. Everybody else is down days of hygiene. That means that there's a marketplace. There's patients actually, they're looking for a practice that you can, it's like a virgin market out there for you to attract more patients than ever before. This is the time to actually solve this problem. If you wait until it becomes easy to solve, everybody else have solved it and the opportunity is gone. So I absolutely would really try to figure out how we can pay at the very top end of the scale, especially in hygiene, so that we can actually expand hygiene, and that in turn expands the practice. So
Yeah, when you can go up on your costs for hygienists, when you can pay more, and I mean a lot more, you'll eventually have associate doctors in there. They may not be from the US and they may, but you'll have people doing hygiene and they'll be qualified.
so that's what I think is an opportunity, I guess, is that if you can figure out a way to keep expanding hygiene and actually pay at the top of the scale and fill that person up, that you're picking up market share it takes years to do that in most offices.
this is probably once in a lifetime chance for a lot of our
Yes.
doctors.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other comments, Greg? Any other things that we missed?
Getting good at all of these things, let's face it, out of these challenges comes strength. There was a time in dentistry we weren't allowed to market. Well, we still made it, everybody still stayed busy. So right now we're dealt the staff cost card, and we have to play it. And I say, pay the money, find out where the market is and make the offer. And somebody says, well, what about my existing staff? Well, you're going to lose them, or they're going to get angry, and
Right.
you're going to lose them. So figure it in.
I kind of, before we let everybody go here, I kind of find that people will jump ship in a good office for between $2 and $3 an hour. So as soon as they really can make $2 or $3 an hour more than where they're at, they will leave. You'll start seeing people leave. But for $1, $1.50, if the environment's good, everybody likes it there, you're not going to lose anybody. And even up to $2. And if it's a great office, you can even probably keep people where they could get paid maybe even $3 an hour more. But that's kind of the limit. People will jump, good people that you really like and really like you will start jumping ship if you don't stay competitive yourself.
I think it's funny that, not really funny, but kind of shocking that out of left field came this incredible staff market where they're in control. They have so much say now, and it starts with what they're getting paid. So give us a call if we can help you work through your issues and get you on track. Get your mind around these changes.
Absolutely. If you have any questions, you can log on and schedule an appointment with Greg and I, and we'll spend 45 minutes with you trying to fix your issue. We'll do the best we can at solving whatever curveballs you throw at us. We certainly have seen a lot of them.
We've seen it all.
Yep.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.